Hello everybody, this is A7X Fan Ben. This is episode 6 of the collection review series. Today I'm going to be talking about Spanish crew. So the first one, Spanish main, Capitan Alarico Castro. He has the SAT, same action twice ability. Just like most of the other factions have a crew like this. It's nice to get him for just 3 points with no other additional abilities. Luis de Alva. This ability is only worth 1 or 2 points usually. If you know you're going to be facing the English, it's good, but other than that, too costly. This guy has a really long name. Extra action ability, this usually costs 5 points. Costs 6 in this set for some reason. Contessa Anita Emor, this is their limit ransom +5 crew, which are awesome. All the major factions got one of these. So they're super useful. This is like a must-have Spanish crew. I would say Castro fits that description as well. Diego Cesar Lano. Marines, like I've said in the other crew videos, I think Marines should have been about 5 points at a base cost, and then the +1 ability could tack on 1. So they're pretty expensive at 6, and then sometimes they cost 7 with the faction hater abilities. Tariq the Black. This guy is a named captain. He's cool, but the Barbary Corsairs don't really have a lot to offer the Spanish in terms of named crew because they don't have very many, and the ones that they do have, the Spanish have most of those abilities on named crew already, so he's not too useful. This guy is a doctor crew. The crew cannot be eliminated if the ship sinks. That ability is usually a point or 2 cheaper, so it's usually a better deal for your points. This is the other version of Castro. So the first one is SAT, this one is EA, extra action ability, so it costs 2 points more, but you don't have to do the same action twice, you can do a different action each time. This is the other 0 point limit ransom crew. It should say 0 points, it's a typo on the card. So this one gives the reroll ability. Usually the +5 crew is better, almost no matter what, but it depends on what game you're playing. And sometimes +5 crew are not really looked upon too well, so especially if your opponent doesn't have one, you probably don't want to use one, because then it gives you like a 5-point advantage usually. And some events might not. There's some like game groups would probably shy away from the +5 crew, in which case this one is a pretty good option. Del Nero, I like this crew a lot. He gives you +1 against any non-Spanish ships, or forts as well, which is great. It's the World Hater ability. This is one of my favorite abilities because it makes my cannons more accurate. And I like, with my history of the Royal Navy and everything, and researching like naval warfare, I like combat ships, like gunships a lot. Not that I never try to collect gold or anything, and I roll pretty badly though, so World Haters help your cannons become more accurate, which is really nice. Broadsides attack, this ability is overrated, like I've said in the other videos, so I wouldn't really recommend it, especially on a crew. Certain ships have it built in, which can be good, but if you had the points to spend, you could try using this guy on like a 2-masted ship if the guns are like rank 2, especially if they're 2S guns. That would probably be the ideal ship for this guy, along with a captain and helmsman. But for your points, it's not really worth it most of the time, unless it's like a higher point game. +1 against Barbary Corsairs, that's really only worth 1 point because they're a minor faction, so this guy's not going to see a lot of usage. This guy's the opposite. He has captain and reroll abilities built into one crew, so that's really great. He's a staple of Spanish fleets. You can use him with either version of Castro for the SAT plus reroll combo, and then you also have the captain ability, so you just add a helmsman, and then those 3 crew would make up kind of an ideal gunship setup. The Inquisitor, this guy I've used once in a while. Black mark is a really interesting keyword. It's usually not too great, but it opens up a lot of possibilities for the Cursed, so it really helps them as a faction a lot. The ability is kind of overpriced a little bit, and it's not always that practical, because you can sometimes just sink a ship rather than eliminating the crew through an ability. It doesn't always help that much if you're just trying to sink it anyway. Luis Duin. This might be my favorite Spanish crew, just about, partly because I've had him for so long and I've used him so much. Like I said, I love that second ability, the World Hater ability. And if you combine it into one to cargo space with the captain, it's really just a really great crew. And it's one of the cooler crew pictures. There's a lot of cool like portraits, but this one's one of my favorites as well. Victor de Alva. We're going to see a better version of him in a second. This first version was Captain plus S-Board, which is a decent combo. Here's another version of Louis Suen. There's 3 different versions of him. Hostile. The Hostile Loyal, this one's a really interesting crew because he's the only 2-point captain in the entire game. Because all the other named crew that have captain abilities, they come in at the regular 3 points, pretty much. You could make an argument that there's a discount on some of them, but this is the cheapest way to get the captain ability in the entire game. And therefore that version is actually probably more popular than this one. And also the set, Rise of the Fiends, is generally more common than Mysterious Islands. So those 2 versions are both really good. Here's the other Inquisitor. So you can see his point cost went down. So now instead of Black Mark, he hates the Cursed. He has Hostile, Cursed, Loyal, Spain. And then that helps keep the cost down to a degree on that ability, which is, his main ability is the same, which is like the massacre ability, whatever you want to call it, to kill all the crew on the enemy ship. This Victor de Alva is far better than the other one. He gives Captain and the EA ability in 1 cargo space, which is fantastic. He's one of their best crew. You could make a decent case that this is the best Spanish named crew in the game. He also links to the San Cristobal, which is arguably Spain's best ship in the game, possibly. So it's just a crazy great link, and he does really well on a lot of different ships. And since he combines the 2 abilities into 1 cargo space, you could even use him on like a Gold Run or something like that. Like the Santa Isabel with this guy plus a helmsman would be pretty effective and devastating. Roberto Santana, I love this ability. It's better in bigger games, like 80+ points. It's especially great in campaign games because you have so many options and there's so many different opportunities and chances to use it correctly and to use it in a really effective manner. Especially if you use it on like a 10 master or a 6 master or something like that with a lot of cannons, because the more cannons you have, the more useful this crew becomes. And same with other crew with a similar ability that gives +1 to cannon rolls, because you get the ability applied to more cannons the more cannons you have. So kind of expensive for a regular 40-point game, but a really cool flexible ability in larger games, especially campaign games that don't end for a long time. And then this is the third version of Luis Zuen. This one is not nearly as useful as the other 2. It would be maybe if it was 1 point, which would be silly, but he just gives the helmsman keyword really, which is always 2 points. So unless you don't have the other versions and you feel like using him for some reason, there's really no reason to use this edition of him. Bianco is amazing. We'll see his other version very soon, his first version. This guy's unique because his first edition came in Spanish main, the first set, and then his second version, this one, the only other version of him, came in the last set, which is Savage Shores, and both of them are quite good. The Cargo Master keyword I don't really like because it's kind of undercosted because it becomes overpowered in larger games. So it gives you plus all your ships of the same nationality in your fleet, in this case all friendly Spanish ships, get +1 to cargo spaces. So if you're playing in a huge game with like 500 or 1,000 points, the ability doesn't scale in cost to how many ships are affected by the ability. So this pretty much becomes broken in larger games. So if you play campaign games, I would highly recommend basically banning this ability for those games because it's so easy to abuse, and it would also make things confusing to keep track of, especially if you overload a ton of ships and then he gets eliminated or removed from the game or something. It's going to be a total disaster. So, but in regular games, the Cargo Master keyword is pretty reasonable. It's not like overpowered too much. Secret Hold is really cool. It was only in the last set, Savage Shores. Basically means all your cargo, all your treasure coins on his ship are going to be safe. There is one ability that we'll see soon that can kind of override that in a way, but anyway. So that's a pretty good ability. Diaz, okay, this is, along with De Alva, Diaz is arguably the best Spanish crew in the game. He gives them a Canceller, which is, like I've said before, probably the best ability in the game outside of generic crew, and a few. I mean, there are some, like 2 hits to eliminate a mast, or this ship eliminates 2 masts with 1 hit. Those are amazing too, along with some others, but the Canceller keyword is, or the Canceller ability, I should say, is really just amazing. It's pretty much impossible to overrate it, if possible. I would probably be the one to do that, to overestimate how good it is, but because I like it so much and it's just game changing. And this is also the first canceller, which is pretty cool. So that Spain had the original first canceller ability. Fernando Sanchez, the home island rating ability is usually 4 points, sometimes even 3, so he's kind of expensive for what you get. Vega, this guy is great on the Acorazado. It's a really good defensive ability, and this is the only time in the game that it ever appeared on a crew, which is pretty unique too. So Spain has some really unique named crew options, as you can see, just from these 3 on this page alone. And De Alva too, actually. So Vega is pretty awesome. I would recommend him on like a big ship, like a big gunship. The Acorazado was perfect for him, like I said, because when you combine the 2 abilities, it takes 3 hits to eliminate the first mast, and then 2 for all the rest of the masts. So it's like a defensive powerhouse, unlike any other ship in the game, basically. Vasquez, this ability I don't think is worth 5, maybe 4 points would be better. It's best used on a ship where it would have all short-range cannons, and then you use this guy to make them all long-range, so you get the bonus of the ability on all the cannons, kind of similar to a crew like Santana. But it really depends on the circumstances. I haven't used him too much, but he could be good, especially with like equipment or something like that. This is the original version of Bianco that I talked about, so +1 to cargo spaces and doesn't take up cargo space, so that's really nice. He links to Bianco's haulers, which you can unload cargo at your home island if you're within S of it. So that takes up, so they basically don't take up cargo space with the link, essentially. I mean, that's not how the links work, but that's essentially what it does. So this is actually a link that works really well. I would recommend using it on like Spanish Gold Runners if you have both of these crew, or even if you just have one. Especially Bianco himself could be pretty useful even without the link. This guy is really good. Basic ability, just 2 points, but it's very effective, and it's really good. Any gunship could benefit from it. Castro's Loyalists, +1 to boarding rolls. This ability got really costly in the later sets. It started costing like 3 or 4 points, which is silly. Obviously, here you see Spanish main, 2 points. That's what the ability is worth. End of story. Gonzalo Mora. This one is, I've always liked this ability. It does appear on one of my favorite ships, HMS Lord Walpole, which was like my favorite, or my first English ship. I don't seek it out very often, but if you get it built into a ship, or if you just have an extra 2 points to spend, it can be pretty good. It's great if you're going against a ship that has like weird cannon ranks. So maybe if it has like a 2L gun, but the other guns are like 3S's, this is a good ability because then you can take out the 2L gun first. So it's kind of cool. This is the original version of Del Nero. The other version's better because he gives +1 against all nations, or all non-Spanish nations, for just a point more. Kovas. This guy just ignores terrain. It should say except icebergs. It's kind of a weird technicality. Apparently it was supposed to say that from the beginning, but they would never really made that clear until icebergs came out. So it's kind of a weird issue. Horacio Linares, Jaded Rebellion crew can use their abilities. So the Jaded Rebellion, they do have a few crew that the Spanish don't have. Mostly Qian Ing, who is a cargo wrecker, so 4 points. You can eliminate any cargo from the other ship on every single hit. Other than that, you wouldn't see much usage. Padre Francisco, I haven't used this ability much. It's definitely an interesting one. It'd be better in a bigger game where you don't really know what kind of role your gunship's going to be playing or what they're going to be going against. And then you would decide which 2-point crew you might want to bring in. But it's usually just better to get the crew at the beginning of the game and then just save the point for an extra oarsman or something like that, or equipment maybe. This guy is one of the most expensive crew in the game, 10 points. He's not really worth it. And also his link to the Cervantes, that's I think it's an 11-point ship, so you can't even put a helmsman on because that would make it over the point limit. So it doesn't make much sense as a crew. Probably should have been thinking like 7 points or maybe even less. Guillen, he has the captain plus escort abilities. The Spanish have a few crew with that. We saw the first version of Victor de Alva had that as well. And then the mask, okay, yeah, so they have 3. Yeah, this is kind of a weird one. It's probably not the best choice by the designers, but they basically have 1, 2, now 3 crew with the captain and S-board combo of abilities. So they're all the same, essentially, just different links. But the one cool thing about that, I guess, if anything, is that you could use all 3 of them in like a campaign game if you really wanted to. This guy is great. Castilla, he gives the captain ability and then combines it with the crew killing ability. So that's a really great crew for any gunship, any Spanish gunship to have. This is the guy I was talking about earlier in terms of secret hold, being able to take a gold. So this only takes unique treasures, but it does bypass secret hold, so you could get unique treasures from the other ship. It's a really niche ability, but it could be powerful in a really specific and lucky situation. Pescador, this one is really strange because the Spanish hardly have any sea monsters or sea creatures, and this one links to one of the only ones they do have. So when, it's kind of confusing, when he's on El Toro doesn't get the bonus. It's a sea monster within El of El Toro, if El Pescador was on El Toro, if you actually used the link. And then the other weird thing is, it says sea monster, which El Toro is a Titan, which is a different keyword than sea monster. Might make a video about this sometime because it's pretty strange and confusing. So even if you had Pescador on a different ship, you couldn't give El Toro the bonus because it's not technically the right keyword. So it's pretty silly link and kind of strange circumstances surrounding that confusion. Dominic Frida, this is a fantastic crew. This is a staple of French treasure running fleet, or Spanish, sorry. I would say this is another must-have crew, without a doubt. Explorer, and then he combines that with Bianco. This is a fantastic crew. There's also a limited edition version of him, which is really rare. The ROTF LEs are super expensive and tough to get. That version has Explorer, and then it also has the +2 gold bonus ability, which, as I've said in at least one other video, is a game-changing ability and a game winner. So that one's probably... I would say that version is about as good as this one, maybe better, depending on what ship you put him on. So they're both amazing crew. And the nice thing is you could easily... The picture is the same, and the set is the same, so you could easily proxy this Frida for the other one, because you probably don't want to spend like 20 bucks on one crew. And then this is the other version of Bianco's haulers. So the link, like I said, Bianco and his haulers both came back from the first set, and then they returned in the last set, which is pretty cool. And then this one is super unique, just like the other Savage Shores version of Bianco himself. The ship can't be shot at while docked. So to have that on a crew is really, really cool. It may be too powerful in a weird way, because it lets you do some crazy combos in terms of fitting something like this on a 10-master, and then using like home island raiding crew and the treasure ship keyword to raid enemy home islands while you can't be shot at while docked. So it gets kind of crazy if you want to use combos like that. In Spain, if you watch the Spanish ships video, that collection review video, you saw that Spain does have some pretty good ships with the home island raiding ability. So that's a good combo with this crew. The Espada de Dios I used in a fleet and put Bianco's haulers aboard. It was a pretty cool combo. So then you would be able to dock in an enemy home island, raid them, and then not be able to be shot at. So this was episode 5 of the collection review series. This is A7X Fan Ben.